What is up, heroes? This is Midnight Zero, and welcome back to the NCPL Season 4. This is Week 10. We are going up against James, coach of the New England Nihilegos. James is actually a really good battler. When you look at his record, he's 3-6. A couple of those wins have actually been forfeits. He's been not doing super well this season, but do not let that record fool you. James is a very competent battler. I was introduced to him, I think, just a season or two ago, and I've been impressed with all of his play thus far, and his improvement in particular. He definitely has the potential to be an incredibly challenging opponent, so definitely not sleeping on him this week, and I'm actually looking forward to battling him. James and I have gotten into some heated arguments before and everything, but honestly, he's one of the players, one of the coaches I've really come to respect over the past season in having discussions with him, just, about Pokemon and about things outside of Pokemon too. So, yeah, just generally looking forward to this match. I am scared, because I definitely don't want to lose, and I know he's looking forward to the match too. So hopefully all is in good, positive vibes and spirits as we enter the battle. And even though I'm gonna have my typical nervousness, I'm gonna have my typical pressure. I can't lose, the pressure at the top. Shout out to Deku. But regardless, let's get into his team. He's got a very sand-oriented team. His team, I will say, is actually one of the teams that at the very beginning of the season I thought was going to be one of the top tier teams. I'd probably say top 4 or 5 in the league. Just because of its offensive presence, its defensive core, its ability to run balance, its ability to break through stall, and its ability to run hyper offense. It's got, reliable hazard removal, it's got decent hazard setting, and yeah, that's the main gist of his team, I would say. It's very flexible, and it does a lot of those jobs pretty well. Starting off with Mega Garchomp, it's a pretty solid Mega. It's not my favorite, but of course it fits really well in Sand, having access to Sand Force, base 170 attack, 120 special attack, and decent bulk. The only really nerf it got is that base 92 speed, which, is outsped by a lot of Mons that are a bit more offensive, so that's one of its biggest weaknesses, but it does hit really hard with Earthquakes, Earth Powers, Draco Meteors, Outrages, Fire Blasts. It's got all of the typical Garchomp moves, so I'm pretty familiar with its potential move sets and everything, but it hits hard. It hits hard. Next up is Excadrill. Excadrill, one of, namesake Sand Sweeper. It's got base 135 attack. It can run Sand Rush, so it can afford to run Adamant a lot of times too. You can, put a Life Orb, SD. If it were his Zmon, he could go for Z moves, Iron Head, Excadrill, or Iron Head, Earthquake, X-Scissor, Rapid Spin, Rock Slide. Between some coverage of that, you're hitting a lot of things really hard, and yeah, it's just a scary threat. It's a scary threat. It's got great speed control. Next up is Suicune. I finally am building to go up against Suicune. It's so sad. It's so sad. I love Suicune so much. I'm so sad to have to potentially go up against it. It's a real monster to prep for, and I miss having it so much. But it can do a lot of different things. It can, sub-pressure stall things, sub-protect. It can run Roar to phase things around and set up, prevent anything from actually doing enough damage to it. It can run Crocoon set, Calm Mind, Rest, Sleep Talk, Scald. It's so bulky, it's really difficult to break through, especially with access to pressure and reliable recovery. Well, semi-reliable recovery in Rest. So, yeah. My heart. Next up is Tyranitar. Tyranitar is a really good mon. A lot of people overlook it because of the relatively low speed tier and the quadruple weakness to fighting, but it's got base 134 attack and actually base 95 special attack, both of which are really important, I guess. Stone Edge, stab, base 134 attack, Stone Edge is hitting so hard. Crunch hits really hard. It has Earthquake, Fire Punch, Ice Punch. I don't know if it gets Thunder Punch. I think it does get Thunder Punch, actually. But between all of those moves, it's got incredible physical coverage. On the special side, it's got access to Ice Beam, Fire Blast, Dark Pulse, all of which are really good. On the bulkier side, it, of course, can run Stealth Rock as a reliable setter of that. It's got great bulk, too. Base 100 HP, 110 defense, and 100 SPDF, with Sandstorm boosting its SPDF by 50% anyways, every single time it comes in. So definitely a mon that is going to be difficult to take down, and I really need to scout its set. I need to figure out if it's Dragon Dance. I need to figure out if it's Rock Polish. Is it running Ice Beam, Ice Punch, Fire Blast, Fire Punch? Does it have EQ? Does it have Stone Edge? Does it have Crunch? Because that really changes how I can approach, walling it. What mons can I switch into? I need to have mons prepared to take on any form of Tyranitar, which is just almost impossible to even ask. So definitely a scary mon to go up against. Sylveon is, in my opinion, a really good mon. I used it in the co-op league of after the TGFA Season 2 with Max, and yeah, it's really bulky. It typically runs Max Phys Def because it's already got great natural Spadef and HP. It can Wish Pass, it's a good Cleric, and at the same time, Pixelate Hyper Voices are hitting really hard. You can also slap Specs on it, or like a Pixie Plate, and it's putting in a lot of work with those Hyper Voices because it's got base 110 special attack as well. So definitely a mon to worry about there. Crobat is actually one of the ones I was considering drafting myself. It's got decent defensive bulk, but what's really cool is its typing. It helps a lot with a lot of the Tapus. It's immune to, it's an Earthquake immunity, and it's also a defogger. It's a reliable defogger. It's got access to recovery in Roost, and it's also got access to Taunt, meaning it can help break through stall in that sense. It also has Super Fang, which is relevant. It can get momentum with U-turn. It can run physical or special. I think it gets SD and Nasty Plot. What's it called? Don't hold me to that, but next up is Entei. Entei. Entei doesn't really do a whole lot outside of hitting hard. That said, it does it really well. Also, I just realized I don't think I looped the music. If you guys want to see the music, this is from Blue Reflection. It's a bad game with really good music, in my opinion. A lot of music blends together. I haven't played the game, I've just watched a review, and I can pretty safely say it's not that great of a game. But the music is pretty cool. I like it. You've heard it once before, too, with Liam's battle. But Entei, it hits really hard with Sacred Fire and Flare Blitz. Base 115 attack, access to Sacred Fire, Adamant, Choice Banded, Sacred Fire, 50% chance to burn each time it hits, 95% accurate. It just does a ridiculous amount of damage. There's no getting around it. It has access to Extreme Speed, it has access to Stone Edge. I think it gets Bulldoze as well. So it's got options, and maybe you run Scarf, maybe you run Life Orb, maybe you run Adamant Choice Band, but that's really what it does. Next up is going to be Blissey. Blissey is a just special wall. That's really what it comes down to. It can Seismic Toss, it can Toxic Things, it can get up rocks, and it's a special tank, but it's pretty difficult to use given that any physical hits do so much damage to it because it doesn't have the Eviolite boost like Chansey does. So yeah, definitely not too worried about Blissey. It can provide, setup opportunities for my mons to recover and all that, but yeah. It can status things, which is really annoying, but Tangela, another mon that I used in the co-op league. Tangela is a mon that's easy to sleep on, but it's actually really good. It's a really great defensive wall with access to recovery in Synthesis, Leech Seed, and Regenerator, and base 115 defenses before an Eviolite boost, making it a great defensive wall. It's got access to Sleep Powder, Sludge Bomb, Earthquake, Knockoff, Giga Drain, all that good stuff. So it's actually a really good mon in my opinion, and really difficult to break through. Celebi is pretty similar, but also has more options, I would say. It's great overall bulk, great overall offense and everything. It can Nasty Plot, Psychic, Leaf Storm, Giga Drain, T-Wave, Stealth Rock, Baton Pass, Swords Dance, Seed Bomb. I think that just about covers it. It's got access to Recover as well, so definitely a bulky mon, a difficult mon to take down in my opinion. Next up is Keldeo. Keldeo hits really hard, one of the kings of, in my opinion, ORAS OU. Scald, Secret Sword, Hidden Power Electric maybe, Icy Wind, there's Substitute, Calm Mind, there's Physical with Close Combat and Waterfall. Sub-CM is probably one of the scarier sets in my opinion, but basically, 129 special attack and great dual stab typings, making an offensive presence and really difficult to switch into a lot of times, especially if you slap a Specs on it. So yeah, Frostlass, one of the mons that's actually a little bit more difficult for my team to deal with because it can Will-O-Wisp things, it can taunt things, it can Destiny Bond, which is really annoying. It can set up spikes, it can Icy Wind, and it's got base 110 speed and potential Curse Body, meaning I won't be able to use whatever move I just potentially used to try and knock it out. So that's a scary aspect. It's oftentimes a lead mon, sets up spike and then Destiny Bonds, and that's it. You come out on top because you each lose one Pokemon, but you've got a spike instead, and arguably force your opponent to lose one of their potential counters to another mon on your team. But yeah, Electros is annoying because it's oddly pretty bulky, and it's really difficult to hit super effectively, rather almost impossible to do so because it's electric type and it has levitate. And it's got great move coverage in Grass Knot, Knockoff, Volt Switch, Thunder Punch, Thunderbolt, Flamethrower, and other stuff, I'm sure. So it's really difficult to take down in one hit, and at the same time, it has coverage to hit whatever Mon is trying to attack it really hard. So it makes it really difficult to take it on 1v1 unless you're using momentum moves like U-turn or Volt Switch or something like that. That's a bit more passive. So yeah, it's also immune to T-Spikes, which makes it more difficult to deal with. But lastly is Escavalier, which is, in my opinion, another really good Mon. It's, of course, 4 times weak to fire, much like Mega Scizor, but it also hits really hard with base 132 attack, access to Iron Head, access to Mega Horn, Swords Dance, and it's got great natural bulk too that allows it to usually live some of those hits. Common sets include Choice Band, Mega Horn, Iron Head, Drill Run. I think it gets Knockoff too, actually. There's also Assault Vest because of its defensive typing and its natural bulk. It can tank hits pretty well while still hitting back quite hard. So definitely a tough team to prep for. Definitely a tough team to prep for. Of the Mons that he has, he most often brings T-Tar, Sylveon, and what else? Keldeo he likes, Electros, Excadrill. He's brought Suicune a couple times, he's brought Crobat a couple times, Entei a couple times. There are no Mons really, except Escavalier, that I can safely say he probably won't bring. I don't need to worry about too much. So definitely want to prep for his whole team, and it was definitely tough doing so. So with that being said, let's hop into our team this week. We are going to be starting off with Toxapex, Nomu. It is max defense, max HP, max defense, and the one little bit of Spadef. Why is Toxapex coming? Because it is a hard Suicune counter. That's really all there is to say about it. It takes like no damage from anything Suicune has to do. It can haze to prevent it from setting up. It can recover whenever it does take damage. If it's roared out and whatever comes in, I can just immediately switch back in because whatever damage I took heals me from Regenerator. And I stall it. That's really all it comes down to. I'm not even going to bother clicking Scald and waste my Scalds against the Suicune. I'll just set up my Toxic Spikes, I'll haze, and I'll keep hazing and using Toxic Spikes, and whatever it takes. If he wants to use up all 32 of his Calm Minds, or all 16 Substitutes and Protects, or all 16 Scalds, doesn't matter to me. He can do whatever he wants. It's not breaking through me. He can run Extra Sensory, it's still not doing much damage at all. So yeah, Toxapex is primarily there for that. But when you look at the rest of his team too, max defense is really helpful against Tyranitar unless it's running Earthquake. It's really helpful against Crobat. It's really helpful against Entei. That's a huge thing. I don't mind Toxapex getting burnt too much, and I can do quite a bit back to Entei. I actually live a Life Orb, Jolly, Excadrill's Earthquake from full. Do about half with Scald. So there's that aspect. I naturally take on Keldeo typing-wise, which is really nice. And I can also switch in on Escavalier potentially. And I don't take too much from Electros, but I don't want to get knocked off or anything like that. So yeah, I also potentially help out with Sylveon. Yeah, Toxapex is, doing typical Toxapex things. Typing-wise, it takes on some of the special attackers, and physically, it, has the investment to really take on some of his physical attackers. And I need to scout with this Mon. I can use it as a sponge, as a pivot, and I can set up T-Spikes to poison things, wear them down, because his Mons are really difficult to switch into, and I want to keep them on a timer. So, yeah, that's the that's the idea there. The next Mon is going to be Garchomp. We're running an Expert Belt SD Garchomp. No, we're not running Scarf Chomp. Why? What is this madness? We're running Earthquake, Dragon Claw, and Poison Jab, and SD. We're running near max speed, max attack. The rest goes into a little bit of bulk, as it makes sense. The idea here is of his walls, right? Like, you look at Suicune, you look at Crobat, you look at Sylveon, Tangela, Celebi, Electros, potentially Escavalier. All these Mons that potentially switch in on Garchomp due to the nature of typing or just being defensive or whatnot, I can SD on and then beat 1v1, without a doubt. Earthquake does so much damage to everything. Poison Jab at +2 is OHKOing a defensive Sylveon from full. It's doing over half to Tangela. Earthquake does a lot to anything. Dragon Claw does 60-something% to a max defense Crobat, so it can't even, roost on me or anything like that. And yeah, it just puts in a lot of work. It breaks through his walls, which is really neat. And it's definitely something I need. I also wanted it because it outspeeds Excadrill and It outspeeds almost all of his team outside of the sand, which is pretty cool. And I needed that offensive presence. I also am bulky enough just naturally that I usually live one hit. You know, I can come in on Earthquake, or not necessarily come in on Earthquake, but if I sack something and, you know, my Garchomp comes in on Excadrill, there's nothing Excadrill can do in one turn that knocks me out, and I'm going to knock him out with Earthquake. Same goes for Mega Garchomp. I outspeed that. Same goes with Tyranitar. That's part of the benefit, is just Garchomp does so well against his team. If he wants to bring in Suicune, that's taking 70-ish% if it's max defense from a +2 Earthquake. And granted, Sand might be up, granted, Rocks might be up, granted, it might be poisoned, it might have already taken some chip damage throughout the match. That could easily be a knockout, especially if he tries to switch in on it. Garchomp can definitely put in a lot of work. It's going to be difficult to get Garchomp in. I might have to double to get Garchomp in, but once it's in, it can definitely knock something out pretty much every time it gets in. Or at least the first time it gets in and he goes into a wall, it's going to obliterate whatever wall he goes into. And then the next time, he has to make the decision. Does he anticipate my SD and go into, and try and stay in and knock me out with whatever mon is in? Or does he switch into a wall anticipating me to attack immediately? And there's that kind of uncertainty that overall I think I win those uncertainties on average. Next up, we've got Bulu. You might be wondering, why Bulu when we have Garchomp? Well, honestly, it hurts him more than it hurts me, is what I would say. I can play more effectively. I can control my own use of Garchomp and Bulu to work around my Garchomp's Earthquake, but I can also use Bulu to really hinder his potential ground type attacks. You know, Mega Garchomp, Excadrill, and Tyranitar are so much more threatening when they have Earthquake, and Bulu halves that damage. And in a sense, it also really helps Toxapex, meaning it helps, you know, I take less than half from Excadrill's Earthquake as Toxapex. How cool is that? And I do 45 to 50% with Scald and have a chance to burn, and then I, you know, set up on it all day. Same goes with Tyranitar. Just having access to something to reduce Earthquake's damage is really cool and will help out defensively. Also, having the passive recovery is definitely going to help out with Toxapex in the long run too, because I do plan on having a lot of pressure on that Pex in this match. The set itself seems really odd. It's max HP with quite a bit of defense, but also a lot of speed, and then a little bit of attack, and the moveset is a bit different, so allow me to explain. The idea here is I have enough speed to outspeed Adamant T-Tar, and the thing is, Adamant, max attack, Ice Punch, 2-hit KOs me after Rocks. So the idea was, if I switch into T-Tar, I live Jolly Ice Punch after Rock. I live 2 Ice Punches from Jolly T-Tar after Rocks, but I don't live Adamant, so I outspeed Adamant so that I don't have to take 2 of them if I do switch in on it. But I can take 2 if I have to, if he does choose to outspeed with a max speed T-Tar. So that's kind of the rationale there. Hornleech is doing a lot of damage to a lot of his team. You know, Suicune obviously, T-Tar, Excadrill, Mega Garchomp, Blissey even, Keldeo, you know, it does a lot of damage to most things. The couple mons that might want to switch in on this, like Tangela or Celebi, if poisoned, if taking Rocks, definitely don't want to take a Nature's Madness, which is what I'll do if he primarily uses Tangela. If he brings Celebi, I can hit that thing with Mega Horn and knock it out, which would be so nice. The other thing is I'm running Leftovers, and thanks to Grassy Surge, I'll be gaining HP decently well, so I can switch in on multiple things multiple times. I can also Leech Seed if I don't want to predict too hard. You know, he's probably going to bring Crobat on this because it's a great switch into Tapu Bulu. He might have to scout for the Continental Crush or the Stone Edge, but overall he can probably pretty safely bring it in. Nature's Madness is going to be doing half of his HP, especially if Rocks are up. That's going to keep it nice and low. I can Leech Seed, especially if I want to bring it in and help heal up something else, because if he comes in on Rocks, you know, in Leech Seed, he's probably going to want to Roost before switching out again so that he can more healthily switch in again the next time. And then whatever I switch into gets Grassy Terrain recovery and Leech Seed recovery. So it's really, you know, Bulu's a team player this matchup, because there's still a lot of things that beat it down. You know, it doesn't take Sylveon's hits too well. You know, Entei beats it for sure. Fire Blast from Mega Garchomp is scary. Ice Beam from Suicune is scary. Ice Beam and Fire Blast are scary from Tyranitar. You know, Iron Hedge from Excadrill. Potentially Icy Wind from Keldeo, which I might bring this in on. I don't want to risk getting burnt by Scald though. Frostlass, Escavalier, like they all have moves that can hit Bulu hard, but Bulu usually lives 1 or 2 and supports the rest of the team significantly this matchup. So as long as I keep it around and have that option available, it's going to be really helpful. Next up is Mega Scizor. We are running max defense, max HP, Mega Scizor, Bullet Punch, U-Turn, SD, and Roost. I am considering replacing SD with Defog, so you might see that during the match. The idea here is I wanted something reliable for Excadrill. Iron Head, EQ, between Bulu and Pex aren't doing super well. Even against, something like Porygon 2, it's not doing incredibly well, especially if he's running SD or something like that. So I wanted something that's a more reliable switch in, especially if Grassy Terrain is up, to Excadrill and can roost up on it, can set up on it, can do damage to it in that situation. And I also wanted something that can come in on other Earthquakes, help draw out, bait out some Fire Blasts that I can scout for, or, Hidden Power Fires if they have them. This allows me to hit Sylveon pretty hard. It also allows me to hit Crobat hard if he's not running Heat Wave. It's a good switch into Escavalier, especially because of, Mega Scizor just being a great knockoff switch in. It threatens out Celebi with U-Turn, of course. It also allows me to get momentum on Tangela with U-Turn. Yeah, it's a reliable switch in. It gets me momentum, which is really nice. And at +2, I'm doing quite a bit of damage to most things. So I'm considering Defog just because he has reliable rockers, and I definitely don't want Rocks Up chipping away at my team in addition to Sandstorm. But yeah, we'll see. It's Mega Scizor is great for Excadrill, especially if he's not Life Orb. I think I take like 33% from Earthquake or something like that, and that's outside of terrain. I figured that out in the championships of the co-op league with Max going up against Sam and Austin and their Excadrill and T-Tar combo. But yeah, next up is going to be Bronzong. We are running Max Spadef. Yes, another 252, 252. Could I have tailored this a little bit more? Probably, but not meaningfully. The idea here is I'm Levitate. I want an Earthquake immunity for both Garchomp and Excadrill. If they are taking damage, if they are poisoned, if they are burnt, each turn really matters, and I didn't want to allow them to just spam Earthquake, even if it's, weakened by the terrain. As far as why I'm Spadef, the idea is I needed a Spadefmon, right? His Crobat could be Nasty Plot, his Sylveon could be Specs, his Keldeo could be Specs, his Frostlass is still a problem, but he's not, all physical attackers, and I needed something that's a bit more dedicated that can take Specs, Keldeo's hits. Granted, I can't recover from them as well, but at least threaten it out with something like Psychic. Same goes for Crobat, and the same goes for Sylveon. I wanted all 3 of those Mons to be checked by one Mon, one specially defensive Mon that can hit back with something like Iron Head or Psychic, and that's what Bronzong is going to do here. It can Toxic everything else. Entei's probably going to want to switch in, Tyranitar might want to switch in, Suicune might think it's cool to switch in, but it risks getting Toxic. Same goes with Tangela, Frostlass as well, but it also has to fear an Iron Head, all that good stuff. Maybe Electros wants to come in, but it fears Toxic. And early on in the match, I can get up Rocks, which will be really helpful for whittling away at Entei, Crobat, especially Suicune too. Getting little bits of chip over time, especially if I'm getting up T-Spikes as well too. So, yeah, Bronzong is going to be not a super used switch in, but it can be used as a ground immunity, and it also doesn't fear Fire Blast too much because of how specially defensive it is and can get off important Toxics or get up Stealth Rocks if necessary. And at least getting up Stealth Rock pressures him to go for Defog with Crobat, or to go for Rapid Spin with Excadrill, which potentially wastes Sand turns, gives me defensive momentum, and that sort of thing. And then lastly, we've got Volcarona. You probably figured I brought Volcarona when I was considering Defog on Scizor, but yeah, it's pretty straightforward. Fiery Dance, Bug Buzz, Psychic, Quiver Dance, Bug and EMZ, Max Speed, Max Special Attack. Honestly, just looking at his team, it does so well. It just does so well. Bug and EMZ doing so much to Garchomp, Fiery Dance to Excadrill, Bug Buzz going through Substitute with Suicune, and Bug and EMZ doing a lot as well, and Quiver Dance allowing me to basically set up alongside it, not worry about the Spadef aspect of it too. Tyranitar takes so much from Bug, Sylveon takes a lot from Fiery Dance, Crobat fears Psychic, Entei takes so much from Bug, Blissey I think takes a lot too. I mean, I don't fear it too much outside of status. And then Tangela and Celebi allow opportunities to set up. So those are good as well. Keldeo, I do need to worry about Scarf Stone Edge from Keldeo. That was running around early in Gen 7, actually. Frostlass allows me potentially a chance to set up. Same goes with Escavalier. Typical, Volcarona's in, and do I attack it to prevent it from setting up, or do I switch to take the incoming potential hit? Mind games. A lot of times, though, I naturally outspeed a lot of his team, so I don't need to always set up. If Tyranitar's in front of me, I can afford a lot of times to just go for Bug Buzz and do damage to whatever comes in. If I'm, in front of an Excadrill, I can just go for Fiery Dance. I don't need to worry about, staying in and potentially risking a Rock Slide or something like that as I Quiver Dance. I can double into Volcarona on Celebi or Tangela, and then I don't fear anything, right? Maybe a Hidden Power Rock is coming my way. I guess Tangela could run Ancient Power. Is he running Ancient Power? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. But I can scout for that too. I can scout for that because I have Scizor and I can U-turn and all that stuff. So the idea here is Volcarona is really scary. It's going to put pressure on him to get up rocks if he has them and take the time to do so. And it's also going to potentially put him in 50-50s. And as soon as Excadrill dies, at +1, I outspeed all of his team. Granted, there could be a couple Scarfers like Crobat or Keldeo that really scare me, but at +1, I can very, very realistically just sweep through his entire team. So, need to keep that in mind. Something else worth keeping in mind, though, is thanks to Stealth Rock, I would be losing 50% HP, and then, because of my HP EVs, I can allow 2 switch-ins and I'll be left with 1 HP. If Sand is up, that ruins that plan. So I need to be careful and make sure I don't let Volcarona get too whittled away at by Sand, which is scary, I guess, and that's why I'm considering Defog. And the idea is he doesn't always have to bring Defog out there. He doesn't have to bring Defog Crobat. But maybe the idea is I save Volcarona for a late game sweeper like I have in the past, and at least keep that threat around. That'll put a lot of pressure on Crobat, in my opinion, which then enables or opens doors for Bulu and so forth. So yeah, he also might, it puts pressure on him to bring, Excadrill for Rapid Spin as opposed to Defog on Crobat if he wants to get up rocks himself, but knows that he doesn't want to get away rocks on my side of the field because I might bring Volcarona. So I don't know. I'll see if I bring Defog on Scizor. I like SD to potentially sweep through Excadrill, Crobat, Sylveon, Tyranitar. It's doing a lot of damage at +1 or +2, but at the same time, Defog might be worth it. So I'll think about it more. You might see that in the future, but that's the team. James is a good opponent. He's got a great team, and it was really tough to prep for. I know he's really enjoyed the prep process for my team, which is intimidating in and of its own right. So I'm actually pretty scared going into the match. I know I definitely can win. It's far from in the bag, and I'll need to play well to do just that, to win. So hope you guys are cheering for me. I hope you guys are looking forward to the match. But until then, this has been Midnight Zero, and this mission is complete.